Marquis Adams suddenly jumping into the transfer portal in the end of July left Delaware State scrambling for a quarterback. And though they found a replacement, I'm on the fence if I'm completely sold. Oh yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current site expert at Who Dat Dish and contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We'll wrap up today's episode with a Monday mailbag. I love starting off our week with the Monday mailbag. So keep the comments, keep the tweets, keep it all rolling in so I can feature you on the show. I love it. I love it. I love it. So thank you. Segment 2, we're going to take a look at Trey Oliver's allegations towards Virginia Tech that they tampered with one of his players at a game last year. But segment 1, we kick this thing off with one of the more strange pieces of news to break over the weekend, or at least since I was gone. You know, I told you guys I had to get up out of here. I was out on the town Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm back now. All right, so let's hold it down. Let's do our thing, and let's have a good week as we lead into football season. But one player that we will not be seeing in this year's football season, at least not at Delaware State, is Marquis Adams. It's still yet to be seen where he decides to transfer to, but this was strange. Most times you're not going to see a quarterback leave in July unless he's clearly lost a battle, and I do not believe that that's what happened here. When you look at everything that Delaware State did afterwards, it's hard to say that Marquis Adams just lost a battle and left, because as soon as he leaves on July 25th, they hop in the portal and they grab Caden Bennett July 26th. If Adams would have left because he felt like he wasn't winning the battle, that would tell me that Delaware State has a starting quarterback on their roster. But one day later, I don't even know if it hit 24 hours after Adams entered the portal, they got a new quarterback. That tells me Adams was going to be my starter. I know what you may be thinking. Of course, he was the starter the last 2 years, all these other things. New system, new coaches, new leadership, all of that is different, right? Like, that changes who you are. It doesn't matter what you've done unless you're undeniable. And as a quarterback, I'm not going to say undeniable quarterbacks in college can't get new coaches, but I feel like in that short burst, if you've shown yourself to be a talented, really high-level quarterback that we can rely on, most times you would not get the new quarterback. You can be talented, but if you're undeniable, you probably didn't get a new coach. That's just my guess. You know, I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule. But I don't think that this is one of them. Anyway, Kelly Flicks, who I've referred to on this show actually pretty recently, but I've referred to him before for one of his tweets. He puts out great tweets, so make sure you follow him. He said, look, if you're looking for a quarterback, July 26th, you're cooked. And you know what? I'd have to agree. Now, what does that look like for Delaware State? For Delaware State, to me, you already picked last. You already picked to finish last in the conference. So if you're losing Marquis Adams, there's not much lower you can go. Like, let's be very clear. There is no lower that Delaware State can go because they're already projected to finish last. Losing your quarterback in the last week of July definitely feels like a move that cements your last place finish. That's what this feels like to me. So when Flick says, hey, Delaware State is cooked, I kind of agree. But then you go and you get Caden Bennett. And here's where I'm conflicted because Caden Bennett has done enough for me to say, oh, I'm excited about what he could bring to Delaware State. But at the same time, he's available in the end of July. There's a couple of problems with having a player walk out on your program in July. Is that most times the talent in the transfer portal has already been picked off the top, right? So now what is the top of the portal would really be the middle to, like, if we talking about steak, I'm talking about medium to medium rare. That's probably what we're looking at as far as the players that are in the portal right now. So it's very difficult for me to get overly excited, especially when I don't have a lot of name recognition behind it. There's certain times when there's exceptions. Is this one of those times? That's the big question. I'm excited because I've seen what Bennett did at Sac State. I saw the success that he had at Sac State. I saw that he led them to a win over Stanford. As an FCS school, to win against an FBS school, that's always a big deal. He had over 200 yards. He had over 100 yards on the ground. I seen him lead them to a playoff victory, not just an appearance, but a playoff victory in which he had 200 yards in the air, 100 on the ground. He's a dual threat quarterback that makes you get excited. He's had big time moments. And that 2023 campaign is the only time where you saw Caden Bennett as a starting quarterback. Didn't play much in year 1, year 2, year 3. He ends up, or junior year technically, because he redshirted all that. But regardless, the 2023 campaign is the only time that you really saw Caden Bennett be a true starter. 10 games as a starter. Previous to that, he was bouncing around. He had some red shirts. He just didn't play a lot before 2023. 2024 rolls around and he has an injury. He only plays 2 games. Well, if I'm only basing off what I've seen of him in college, this is a good quarterback. This is a good quarterback. If I'm only basing Caden Bennett off what I've seen in college, this is a good quarterback. And I would say it's the responsible thing to do, to judge him based off what you've seen him do in college. And that has been a good quarterback on the FCS level that has beaten an FBS school, that has won a playoff game. 2 things that I'm sure Delaware State would love to do. They haven't done either recently, but they would love to do it. But on the other hand, I have to question why all of the evaluators left him in the portal. Why? Because typically a quarterback with his success rate who's been in the portal since December would be out of the portal by now. Let me say this as a caveat. They're 7th round picks who go on to succeed. Just because evaluators are late to the party does not mean that the party ain't jumping. That's not what that means. So it could very well be possible that Caden Bennett was just missed. Hey, we talking about HBCUs. This is where the diamond in the rough comes to live. 9 times out of 10, they find that diamond in the rough and they take it. But this is where the diamond in the roughs are exposed. This is where we live at. So if Caden Bennett is one of those diamonds in the rough, he'd fit right in. The talent is there. The only question is the timing. And for me, that's a personal preference. For Delaware State, I'm sure they feel like they have their quarterback. No disrespect to the other guys that are in the room. But if Marquis Adams had left out of the portal and you felt like whoever it was going to be your starter, you felt confident could be your starter, I don't think you go get Bennett. I just don't. The only thing that troubles me here, the last thing that troubles me here, I should say, not the only, but the last thing that troubles me here is the accelerated clock that he has to perform under. That's the thing that really makes it difficult, is that let's say that week 1, Caden Bennett is your starting quarterback. The biggest hurdle is that he only has a month to grasp that offense. How much do you tailor that offense to what he's already done? How much can you tweak that offense, right? Because you have multiple other players, not even talking about the quarterbacks, but the rest of the team that already has a feel of what the offense is. How much do you tailor it to what Bennett does? How much does Bennett have to grasp? Is it a condensed playbook that it gets expanded throughout the season? I think that's probably realistic, probably the best way. It's the way that I've seen it happen the most often. But these are questions that I have. These are things that I have to figure out. When you say Delaware State is cooked, it's difficult. It's difficult to find a quality quarterback at the end of July. It's difficult to find a quality quarterback to come in the end of July and then also learn your system within a month because you have a game at the end of August. I want to see what happens. I don't have high expectations because the circumstances around this to me are extremely difficult. I'll just wait and see. I'll just wait and see. Well, you didn't have to wait and see when it came to Trey Oliver. He knew what was happening before it ever even happened, and he alleges that a Virginia Tech staffer was on his sidelines tampering with one of his players. Let's get into that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Now listen, some of us are trying to budget for that new car. Some of us are trying to budget to get into go on a vacation. Some of us just want to budget so we can save, right? Doesn't matter what your budget is, doesn't matter what your financial goals are. Doesn't matter if you just want to make sure that you're aware of how you're spending, right? I know people who have used Monarch Money and all of a sudden they said, I'm spending that much on food deliveries. It happens to everyone. You ever feel like or wish that making or managing your money was easier? Monarch Money makes it that way. It's simple, it's easy, and it's always great for you to use. Now, when it comes to Monarch Money, I suggest that you take control of your finances today. Whether it's you're talking about a goal, just pure financial responsibility, whatever it is, take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at Monarch Money for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day. Every day, make sure for your second listen, you're checking out Locked On NFL and or your favorite team because training camp is in full swing. And we even have preseason football this week. I can't wait. But I have to. Anyway, Trey Oliver alleges that Virginia Tech tampered with one of his North Carolina Central players. And in my opinion, he picked the perfect stage to reveal this news. Oliver didn't specify, but all signs point to it being Jamari Taylor. I mean, he might as well just said Taylor. He gave the position. He gave the school. He even gave the amount of money he got. I ain't gonna lie. Taylor got a nice little bag. Taylor got a nice little bag to go to Virginia. But he said basically it was one of his running backs who went to Virginia. I mean, come on. How many running backs from North Carolina Central in the 2023 season or 2024 season are now at Virginia for 2025? Come on, okay? But let's get into this story because it's very simple and plain. I'm going to start off with one quote, say a little something about it, and then go into a more detailed quote from Trey Oliver afterwards. So he says, point blank period, Virginia Tech was actually on my sideline recruiting our running back. I think one of the bigger problems identified is that there is no way to really regulate this reasonably from happening again. It just isn't. And the story is very fresh. It's not like he sat on it for years or anything. He sat on it for a couple of months, But I don't know if this was strategic. I don't know if this was just lucky. But this was the best place that he could have said it. The best place that he could have articulated what Virginia Tech did, because 9 times out of 10, it's getting swallowed up. I say 8 out of 10, right? 8 out of 10, this is getting swallowed up, but not here. So I think that this was the perfect moment for this to just kind of take off and become at least bigger of a story than you normally would have seen it been. So Oliver says, that was pretty bold. I couldn't believe it. A couple of coaches tried to calm me down and say, yeah, coach, he's just down here visiting. But I knew what it was. I had to focus back on the game, and we won the football game. 2 weeks later, my kid got in the transfer portal. Then they were the first people trying to get in his ear. But like I said, thank God he went to UVA, and UVA is going to beat the smoke out of them other folks. That's the UVA part. I don't remember. I don't have the quote where he says running back, but I'm pretty sure he says running back at some point in this quote. But I was reading through an article, multiple articles, so I can't even tell you where I got it from. But I was trying to find the full quote, and I feel like, oh man, I don't have the full quote. Anyway, neither here nor there. That is the basis. The excuse that was used is that this Virginia Tech staffer was here to visit Assistant Athletic Director George Bulldog Smith, and Oliver said, Bulldog ain't even that nice of a guy. Now, I think we could smell it from a mile away. But the thing is, how do you stop it? How do you stop it? Right? Like you say, he was the first to enter the portal. They were the first to reach out to this running back when he enters the portal. I'm just gonna say Taylor, man. Let's keep it real. And I ain't mad at Virginia Tech for being interested in Jamari Taylor. Jamari Taylor is a fantastic running back. I think he was a fantastic running back. Now, Tech just had great success with Bashul Tootin, who they got from North Carolina A&T. So, you know what, matter of fact, let's go to another North Carolina HBCU who got a running back buzzing. He's going to enter the portal more likely than not. Let's go ahead and see what Jamari Taylor has going on. And you know what? I get why you would want to do that. But this is next level. It's one thing to reach out. Tampering is illegal. But at the end of the day, who's going to stop anybody? But to hop onto the sideline, I'm with Oliver. That's bold. It's one thing to send a message, hey, Jamari, I'm from Virginia Tech, da-da-da-da. But to be on the sideline is crazy. Now, in case you was curious, I don't know if this was inspiration. I don't know. But Virginia Tech was on the sideline, and Jamari Taylor was on the field going absolutely ape. Okay? Like 24 carries, 206 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. He even added 6 catches for 78 yards. All of those are season highs, minus the carries. Minus the carries, those are all season high numbers. The only thing he didn't really set a season high in that we care about, because carries, we don't care about your season high for real, is receiving touchdowns. But he had the most rushing touchdowns of his season, most rushing yards of his season, most total yards of his season, most catches, most receiving yards. Like, he has everything. I don't know if it was because Virginia Tech was there. I don't know if that was maybe a motivating factor. Or I don't know. What I do know is that on that game, it was against Howard, went absolutely crazy. Now, Virginia Tech, of course, responds. Of course, right? Because you have to now. We were made aware Friday afternoon of a public comment suggesting a potential NCAA rules concern involving a member of our coaching staff. This is the first time the issue has been brought to our attention, and no concern has previously been shared with us through any formal channel. Virginia Tech takes all NCAA rules seriously and is committed to conducting our program with integrity. We are reviewing the matter internally and will address findings appropriately. Nothing is happening. Let's be very clear. Nothing is happening to Virginia Tech. I don't think anything was going to happen unless Trey Oliver shared this on this type of stage. Let's say Trey Oliver shares this at MEAC Media Day. Does it have any reach? I think it's a minimal reach, but I don't think sharing it on a stage with North Carolina State, Duke, North Carolina, East Carolina University. You got 3 ACC schools up there. That's the same conference that Virginia Tech is in. I'm sure maybe there's more media coverage because you have these bigger schools. I'm sure some of these schools may have been like, oh, Virginia Tech did that. We're going to report it. Like, it's I'm not saying it was strategic because he was just asked. It was, I think, a you got to be kidding me moment. So he just gave his story. But boy, this was the perfect time to do it. The schools that were present, the media that was present, they're both bigger than what Trey Oliver and North Carolina Central typically would be around. So now there's more legs for this story to go. And it is an insane story. You got to imagine that, right? This is a crazy story. It's something that would have blown up on our HBCU channels. I'm sure I would have covered it regardless. I just wouldn't have talked about the Virginia Tech response. I just wouldn't have talked about the schools that were on the stage. But Trey Oliver coming out and saying that Virginia Tech was on the sidelines of the Howard versus North Carolina Central game to recruit Jamari Taylor in that moment is an insane story, but it probably would have stopped very early. Saying it on a stage with some fellow ACC schools at an event that I'm sure has bigger media coverage, it allows it to become more of a national story. I type in Trey Oliver and I see 5-6 stories that have to do with this right here. So yeah, no formal channel was used to express this concern. But what I will say is 8 out of 10 times, the small school is going to be told to shut up. The small school is going to be dismissed. Trey Oliver, when by telling his story here at this event, made it to where you couldn't just dismiss him. And for that, I think it was very smart, even if it was lucky. As we push forward, As you push forward, ain't no brushing that off. And ain't no brushing off the Monday mailbag either. I'm excited to talk about what you had to say in the comments over last week. We had 4 episodes. This week, we're going to have 5 again. So let's make sure that we get at it. All right, we're going to look at this as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And if you're ready to go to an event like I'm ready to go to an event, then you need to go to Game Time. It's simple and plain. If you need tickets, go there. Maybe it's an athletic event. Maybe you want to go to a preseason game that's around your area, right? Because preseason game, who cares? I might go to a Cowboys game just because I can. Who knows? But if you want to go to a preseason game, if you want to go to a WNBA game, if you're lucky enough to have one of those teams by you, if you want to go to the ballet, you want to go to the theater, you want to go to a concert, all of that, right? It has it on Game Time. It's not just athletics. We just talk athletics here. But you go ahead and go to Game Time. They have things like zone deals. They're going to give you the best prices of anywhere that you go. I don't care if you go to that name or that name or that name. Once you come to this name, this is the only place that you're going to buy your tickets at. And my personal favorite, all-in pricing. No more of the tricks. No more of the tricks of going to check out and all of a sudden it costs $30 more. Matter of fact, if you're new to new to Game Time, use the code Locked On College. You get $20 off. Go ahead and go to Game Time today and get your tickets now. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. Now, we're going to wrap up with our Monday mailbag. So I'm super excited for this. We don't really get to have much interaction. So having this on Mondays always is special to me. But I'm going to start off with one comment. We're going to keep it in the North Carolina Central family before we get back to the SWAC. The MEAC, this comes from Trajmar, Trajmar 3431. He says, or she says, the MEAC couldn't bring itself to give Offensive Player of the Year to Walker Harris. More motivation for North Carolina Central. I'm not going to comment on the motivation part because that's not for me, but I could see this being a motivational thing. I definitely feel like it was a snub. I thought that this was, I know I said it was unpredictable, but I feel like this was the easy pick. I feel like Walker Harris getting the preseason Offensive Player of the Year was a easy selection. In the route that they went was confusing. So it's like, why you just go with the easy choice? You went with a guy who ended up being second team all MEAC at running back. I think that Jason Collins is a very talented running back. If he would have been first team all MEAC, maybe I wouldn't even have had this conversation, to be honest. I don't even know if I'm sitting here debating it. But because he was second team, it's like, how do you put that together? 2 and 3 don't equal 7. It doesn't. So when I'm looking at this, Walker Harris, quarterback, for one of the better teams, the only first team offensive player between South Carolina State, or South Carolina State didn't have an first team offensive player, if I'm not mistaken. North Carolina Central had a bunch, but they didn't have a quarterback. It's typically a quarterback award. So I think that it was just an odd decision to not give the award to Walker Harris in the preseason. We'll see what happens, but typically that's what we're looking for, right? Like, who's the best quarterback? Give him the award. But if it would have been a guy like King, I wouldn't have been mad at that either. If it would have been a guy, I'm not going to name a bunch of people, but I did this last week. If you want to hear the guys I thought it was possible to win the Offensive Player of the Year, go back to last week's episode where it says unpredictable on the thumbnail. But yeah, that Walker Harris getting left out of the Offensive Player of the Year was odd, especially when looking at the choice that was made. Then I want to get to some Trey Holly information. So Heartless Ace 30 says, 4 laughing emojis, too much. He ended up there because of his legal issues he's dealing with. Why can't he play at Southern with the issues, but LSU he can't? That's a good question. I don't know if the laughing emoji with the too much is saying that I put a little too much sauce on how impactful I think that Trey Holly could be. I don't know. Respect, though, if that's what you're saying. No dispute. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you don't think as highly of Holly as I do. That's fine. But to the question of why can he play? Why can he play? And I did add a lot of sauce. I put probably a little too much expectations on him, but I really feel like he could be an offensive player of the year candidate. But why can he play at Southern and not LSU? That's a good question. I think that's something that should be detailed. So Trey Holly can play at Southern because he's not suspended by the NCAA. He was suspended by LSU. Technically, he could have went to Alabama and played. He could have went anywhere. The problem is most bigger schools probably aren't touching him with these legal cases that are ongoing. That is the thing. And he walked on at Southern. So I don't know if maybe Southern wouldn't have given him a scholarship. Who knows? Maybe that's what it was. Maybe he couldn't get a scholarship somewhere. So he said, I'm going to walk on to Southern. But the truth of the matter is, directly to your question, nothing prevents Trey Holly from playing anywhere. LSU just decided to suspend him because they did not want him by the team with these allegations and these cases that were ongoing. But Trey Holly could go play anywhere. He could play at Grambling. He could play at Southern. He could play at Jacksonville State. He could play at Boise State. He could play anywhere that would accept him. Southern is just the school that accepted him. And I think that there is a deeper aspect of second chances. I think there's a deeper aspect of being at a lower subdivision that just naturally you're going to take this type of talent on. I think those all play a part. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that says he can't play college football. There's nothing that says that. He's not in jail. He can play. All right. That's the answer to the question. Hopefully. I think I kind of went around a little bit, but the truth of the matter is he has legal issues that prevent, or LSU is not comfortable with. It's just about what you are comfortable with. And Southern is okay with this. Then about Trey Holly again. Someone said he ain't got the O-line at Southern he had at LSU. Big difference. I hate when people I hate when people do that. Jackson T789. I hate when people do that. And I think he's a JSU fan. If I'm not mistaken, we talked about him last week where he spoke about Deion Sanders being a blueprint. I could be wrong. But I thought that Southern Jaguar or SU Jaguar 98 had the best response. He said, and the D-line in the SWAC is smaller and slower than the SEC. See how that works. Yes, I think sometimes we got to look at things proportionally, right? Is the offensive line at Southern as good as the offensive line at LSU? No. But they don't have Jalen Carter on the other side either, right? Like they don't have this top 5 overall pick coming out of the interior, this elite edge coming off the top 10. Like they don't have that either. There's no Jalen Walker that they're going to have to go against. No James Pierce that they're going to have to go against, right? Like I think we have to, like SU Jaguar 98 said, we got to look at everything in the right bubble, in the right framework. The talent around him is different, but the talent he's going against is different too. So nothing I got to say. If I just want to take a comment versus a comment, unique way to end our Monday mailbag. Tomorrow, Cam Newton's looking to be the voice of the HBCUs. What would that mean? How would we feel? And what could it look like? Let's get into all of that tomorrow. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Peace.